wake up at the same time every day. Same room, same ceiling, same faint weight in your chest that you've learned to ignore. Nothing is wrong exactly. Your life is fine. And that's the most dangerous word of all, because comfort doesn't arrive with alarms or sirens. It doesn't kick down the door or demand your attention. It whispers. It soothes. It says, stay here. You're safe. But let me ask you something you may not have asked yourself in years. When was the last time you felt truly alive? Not productive, not busy. Alive. The kind of aliveness that sharpens your senses. The kind that scares you a little. The kind that reminds you that you are not here merely to survive. Most people don't die suddenly. They fade. Slowly. Politely. Comfortably. And the tragedy is this. They never notice it happening. You were told comfort is the reward. A stable job, predictable routines, familiar relationships, no sharp edges, no risk, no uncertainty. And you believed it. But what if comfort isn't the prize? What if it's the cage? Carl Jung once warned that neurosis is always a substitute for legitimate suffering. Sit with that for a moment. What suffering are you avoiding? And what is it costing you? Because deep down, you already know this truth. Even if you've buried it under routines and rationalizations, your comfort zone is not keeping you safe. It's slowly killing the most vital parts of you. Your ambition, your creativity, your courage, your hunger for something more. You didn't stop dreaming because you grew wise. You stopped because dreaming became uncomfortable. You didn't abandon your deeper impulses because they were unrealistic. You abandoned them because they demanded change. And change threatens comfort. Here's the paradox no one warns you about. The longer you stay comfortable, the harder it becomes to leave. Your nervous system adapts. Your mind rewires. Your identity reshapes itself around safety instead of growth. Soon, discomfort feels like danger, even when it's the doorway to life. Pause. Let this question land fully. If nothing changes in your life for the next 5 years, would you be proud of where you end up? Not relieved, not stable, proud. Most people don't fail because they aim too high. They fail because they aim for comfort and call it wisdom. Ancient Vedic wisdom speaks of tamas, the energy of stagnation, inertia, sleep. It is not evil, it is seductive. Tamas says, tomorrow. It says, this is good enough. It says, why risk what you have? But it never asks, what are you becoming? You see, life is movement. Psychologically, biologically, spiritually. Anything that stops moving begins to decay. Muscles weaken when they're not used, minds shrink when they're not challenged, souls suffocate when they're not expressed. Yet somehow you were taught that stillness equals peace. So you sit, you wait, you scroll, you distract yourself from the quiet voice inside that keeps asking for more. Not more money, not more status, more meaning. And here's the unsettling truth. The comfort zone doesn't feel like death. It feels like a warm, quiet sleep. That's why it's so dangerous, because by the time you realize you're numb, you've already been there for years. But this isn't a message of blame. It's a moment of awakening, because the discomfort you've been avoiding is not your enemy. It's a signal that something in you is still alive, still restless, still refusing to disappear quietly. And the question is no longer whether comfort is harming you. The real question is, what part of you is dying while you stay comfortable? In the next section, we'll expose why the comfort zone has such a powerful grip on your mind, how psychology, society, and even your own biology conspire to keep you small, and why breaking free feels terrifying, even when you know you must.
The comfort zone does not trap you by force. It traps you by agreement. You consent to it slowly, unconsciously, one small compromise at a time. Psychologically, your brain is not designed for truth, meaning, or fulfillment. It is designed for survival, and survival loves familiarity. Your nervous system evolved in a world where the unknown often meant death. A rustle in the bushes could be a predator. A new path could lead to danger. So your brain learned a simple rule. Familiar equals safe. Unfamiliar equals threat. That rule kept your ancestors alive, but today it keeps you stuck. Modern comfort hijacks ancient wiring. Your brain releases dopamine not when you grow, but when you repeat what it already knows. Same habits, same patterns, same predictable rewards. This is why scrolling feels easier than creating, why staying feels safer than leaving, why you choose the known misery over the unknown possibility. And then you call it being realistic. Carl Jung saw this clearly. He warned that when a person refuses the call to grow, the psyche does not stay neutral, it turns against itself. What you don't live consciously, you live unconsciously, as anxiety, boredom, resentment, or depression. Jung called this the repression of the self, the deeper, truer potential within you that demands expression. And when that self is ignored for too long, it doesn't disappear. It becomes a shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is everything you were too afraid to become. Your unrealized courage, your unspoken truth, your unlived life. And the comfort zone exists to keep that shadow buried. Here's the uncomfortable pause. What parts of you have you locked away just to keep things stable? Society plays its role too. From a young age, you were rewarded not for depth, but for compliance. Sit still, follow the rules, don't rock the boat, be reasonable, be practical. You learned that approval comes from fitting in, not standing out. That security is more valuable than curiosity. That certainty is superior to exploration. So you internalized a quiet belief: if I don't disturb the system, I will be protected by it. But the system was never designed to make you whole. It was designed to make you predictable. Vedic philosophy understood this long before modern psychology. It spoke of the three gunas: sattva, clarity; rajas, movement; and tamas, inertia. Comfort belongs to tamas, not rest, not peace, stagnation. Tamas dulls perception, it blurs time, it makes years disappear without memory. That's why comfort feels foggy. Days blend together, weeks vanish, and suddenly you wonder where your fire went. But here's the deeper layer most people miss. Identity becomes attached to comfort. You don't just live in the comfort zone, you become it. I'm not the kind of person who takes risks. I value stability. This is just who I am. No, that is who you have adapted into. Neuroscience confirms this. The brain strengthens the circuits you use most. What you repeatedly avoid becomes harder to face. What you repeatedly tolerate becomes normal. Discomfort tolerance shrinks, so even small challenges feel overwhelming. Even mild uncertainty triggers anxiety. Even growth feels like danger. And then you mistake fear for wisdom. You say, it doesn't feel right, but what you mean is, it doesn't feel familiar. Another pause. How many times have you mistaken fear for wisdom? Existential philosophers like Kierkegaard and Nietzsche warned of this exact trap. They saw that modern humans trade freedom for comfort and call it maturity. Nietzsche called it the life of the last man, a person who seeks convenience over greatness, safety over depth, pleasure over purpose. The last man says, we have invented happiness, but his eyes are empty. Because deep fulfillment requires friction, meaning demands tension, growth asks for sacrifice. The comfort zone offers none of these. It gives you a padded life when nothing cuts deep enough to wound, but nothing pierces deep enough to awaken. And the longer you stay, the higher the cost becomes. Not immediately, not dramatically, quietly, in a growing sense of restlessness you can't explain, in irritation at small things, in envy toward those who dare, in a low-grade sadness that follows you even on good days. This is the psyche's rebellion. Your deeper intelligence knows you are underliving, and it will not stay silent forever. In the next section, we'll confront what happens when you ignore that rebellion, the unseen consequences of staying comfortable for too long, and how it reshapes not just your life, but your capacity to feel alive at all. The most dangerous consequences of the comfort zone are not loud. They don't announce themselves as disasters. They seep in quietly, disguising themselves as normal life. That's why most people never resist them. On the surface, everything appears functional. You're coping, you're managing, you're getting by, but underneath, something vital is eroding. Your emotional range narrows. You no longer feel deep despair, but you also no longer feel deep joy. Life flattens into a narrow band of tolerable experiences. Neuroscience explains this with brutal clarity. When you repeatedly avoid discomfort, your brain's threat detection system, the amygdala, becomes hypersensitive. It starts flagging growth as danger, novelty as risk, challenge as threat. So your nervous system keeps you in a low-level stress response, even while doing nothing risky. You're tired, but not from effort. You're anxious, but not from danger. You're restless, but not moving. This is what psychologists call learned safety, and it slowly kills curiosity. Pause here. When did "I wonder" turn into "I can't"? Another consequence appears in how you relate to time. When you stretch beyond your comfort zone, time expands, moments feel vivid, memory sharpens. But when every day follows the same script, time collapses, years disappear. That's why people wake up one morning shocked by their own age, not because aging's tragic, but because they weren't present for most of it. Comfort numbs perception. Cognitively, your brain switches into energy-saving mode. It relies on shortcuts, biases. You begin to rationalize stagnation, status quo bias, preferring what is simply because it exists, loss aversion, fearing loss more than valuing growth, sunk cost fallacy, staying because you've already stayed too long. I've already invested years here. What if it gets worse? At least I know what this is. So you tolerate what slowly drains you. Relationships become routines. Work becomes mechanical. Dreams become embarrassing relics. And here's the deeper, more painful truth. Comfort slowly erodes self-respect. Not self-esteem, the kind you perform. Self-respect, the quiet knowing that you are honoring your own potential. Every time you ignore your inner signal to grow, something inside you notices. Every time you choose ease over integrity, a fracture forms. At first, it's subtle, a voice you silence, a desire you postpone. But over time, those fractures accumulate. You start seeking validation externally, likes, praise, distractions, because internally, you've stopped trusting yourself. This is where resentment enters. You may not resent your life directly. You resent people who dare. You resent risk takers. You resent those who seem alive, not because they're wrong, but because they remind you of what you abandoned. Carl Jung warned that whatever is unconscious will be projected outward. Your unlived life becomes your irritation with others. And society reflects this back at you. A culture obsessed with comfort produces people who are easily offended, easily bored, and deeply dissatisfied, yet afraid to change. They demand safety, predictability, and guarantees in a universe that offers none. And when life inevitably disrupts comfort, through loss, change, or crisis, the untrained psyche collapses, because it was never strengthened by discomfort. This is the final hidden consequence. Comfort makes you fragile. You feel safe until you aren't, stable until something shifts, in control until reality intervenes. Vedic wisdom warned of this too. A life dominated by tamas cannot respond skillfully to chaos. It lacks resilience. It lacks adaptability. Only movement creates strength. Only friction builds capacity. Without it, Even small disruptions feel catastrophic. And then there's the existential cost. Late at night, when distractions fade, a quiet question surfaces. Is this all there is? Not angrily, not dramatically, just honestly. That question is not depression. It is intelligence. It is your deeper self asking for participation. And the longer you ignore it, the louder it becomes. Some drown it in entertainment, some in substances, some in productivity. But none of these answer it, because the question isn't asking for comfort, it's asking for aliveness. In the next section, everything turns. Because once you see what comfort is costing you, a radical shift becomes possible. A way of seeing discomfort not as a threat, but as the very signal that life is calling you forward.
Here is the moment where everything you've been taught quietly collapses. What if discomfort is not a warning sign, but a directional signal? What if the very sensations you've been trained to avoid, fear, uncertainty, resistance, are not obstacles to life, but coordinates? This is where most people turn back, because this idea demands something terrifying, that you are not lost, you are resisting the path. Carl Jung believed that life moves toward wholeness whether you cooperate or not. He called this process individuation, the painful, beautiful unfolding of your true self. But individuation does not feel safe. It dismantles identities. It dissolves roles. It demands that you outgrow versions of yourself that once protected you. And the psyche signals this moment with discomfort. Anxiety when you stay too small, restlessness when you settle, a quiet dissatisfaction that refuses to be soothed. These are not malfunctions, they are messages. Pause here. What if your discomfort is not trying to stop you, but trying to move you? Nietzsche understood this deeply. He wrote that one must have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star. Chaos here does not mean destruction. It means reordering. Growth always disrupts the existing hierarchy of your life. Old habits lose authority. Old fears demand justification. Old comforts stop working. And this is precisely why the comfort zone feels peaceful. It freezes the hierarchy in place. But life is not a structure meant to be preserved. It is a force meant to be expressed. Vedic wisdom calls this dharma, your inherent path, your inner law, your unique movement through existence. Dharma is not discovered through safety. It is revealed through engagement, through action without guarantee, through movement without certainty. The Bhagavad Gita does not advise Arjuna to seek comfort. It tells him to act despite fear, despite doubt, despite the unbearable weight of choice. Why? Because inaction corrodes the soul faster than failure ever could. Modern psychology now echoes this ancient insight. Post-traumatic growth research shows that people often become stronger, clearer, and more alive after difficulty, not before it. Why? Because struggle forces presence. It demands adaptation. It reveals capacities you didn't know you had. Comfort never reveals anything new. Here is the radical shift. Stop asking, will this be comfortable? Start asking, will this enlarge me? This question alone can reorient your life. You don't need to make reckless leaps. You don't need to burn everything down. You need to lean consistently, deliberately, toward the edge of your known self. Jung said that the treasure you seek is in the cave you fear to enter, not because fear guards danger, but because fear guards growth. The cave is dark because you haven't brought your consciousness there yet. And when you step toward it, slowly, imperfectly, something remarkable happens. Your fear does not vanish, but your capacity expands. Each time you choose meaning over comfort, your nervous system recalibrates. Discomfort becomes familiar. Fear becomes informative instead of paralyzing. You stop asking for certainty. You start building trust in yourself.
This is the true confidence no one talks about, not bravado, not positivity. Confidence born from knowing, I can face what comes. Another pause. What would you attempt if you trusted your ability to adapt more than your need to feel safe? This is how agency returns. You stop waiting for motivation. You act despite its absence. You stop waiting for clarity. You move and let clarity catch up. Because clarity is not the cause of action, it is the result. The comfort zone taught you to wait. Life asks you to participate. And the moment you stop seeing discomfort as an enemy, it transforms into a compass, pointing not toward ease, but toward becoming. In the final section, we'll arrive at the deepest truth beneath all of this, the realization that changes how you see fear, choice, and the meaning of your life itself.
Here is the truth most people sense, but never fully face. Your life is not shaped by what you desire. It is shaped by what you are willing to tolerate. Read that again, slowly. Because this is where the illusion finally breaks. You don't live inside your comfort zone by accident. You live there because, on some level, you have decided that numbness is more tolerable than uncertainty, that familiarity is more acceptable than transformation, that safety is worth the cost of your aliveness. And yet, something in you has never agreed with that decision. That something is not loud. It doesn't shout. It waits. Carl Jung called it the self, the organizing center of the psyche that knows who you are meant to become, not who you are conditioned to be, not who you have learned to perform, who you are meant to become. And here is the revelation that changes everything. The self does not negotiate with comfort. It communicates through tension, through longing, through dissatisfaction that no amount of distraction can erase. That quiet ache you feel when you're alone, that sense that time is slipping faster than it should, that restlessness that appears even when life looks successful. Those are not signs that something is wrong with you. They are signs that something is right and being ignored. Vedic wisdom understood this with brutal clarity. It taught that life moves through cycles of expansion and contraction, growth and decay, becoming and dissolution. To cling to comfort is to cling to a phase that was never meant to last. Nothing in nature seeks permanent safety. Rivers don't stop to preserve their banks. Seeds don't remain underground to avoid breaking. Stars don't remain stable forever. They burn, collapse, and transform. Only the human ego demands guarantees. And this is the final paradox. The more desperately you chase safety, the more fragile your life becomes. The more willingly you face uncertainty, the stronger you grow. Strength is not the absence of fear, it is intimacy with it. Courage is not confidence, it is commitment without certainty. The comfort zone taught you that fear is a stop sign, but fear is not a wall, it is a threshold. On the other side of that threshold is not ease, it is not constant happiness, it is not perfection. It is alignment, a life where your actions match your inner truth, where your days carry weight, where fatigue feels earned instead of draining. This is why people who live meaningfully often look tired, but alive. Why they face problems, but don't feel empty. Why they experience pain, but not regret. Because regret is born not from failure, but from refusal. Refusal to try, refusal to risk, refusal to answer the quiet call when it first appeared. And here is the most uncomfortable realization of all. No one is coming to rescue you from comfort. No perfect moment, no sudden confidence, no external permission. Life does not reward readiness, it rewards response. The question was never, are you ready? The question is, are you willing? Willing to feel awkward, willing to be misunderstood, willing to outgrow rooms that once felt home, willing to disappoint others in order to stop betraying yourself. Because every day you choose comfort over truth, something subtle happens. Your future self watches, not with anger, with sadness. And that future self is not asking you to be fearless, only to be honest.
honest about what no longer fits, honest about what you've been postponing, honest about the fact that safety has become an excuse. Pause. Let this settle fully. The comfort zone is not killing you all at once. It is killing you slowly by convincing you that later will come. But later is not guaranteed. Meaning is not found in ease. It is forged in movement. So don't ask how to escape your comfort zone forever. Ask something simpler, something truer. What is the smallest act of courage you can commit to today without knowing how it will end? That is enough. Because the moment you step toward discomfort with awareness, you are no longer asleep. And once you are awake, life does not let you die quietly.